Welcome, everyone, to another fantastic episode of Double Booked. I am very excited to be joined tonight by an author whose works blends gripping science fiction with deeply human themes. Wraith and the Revolution is a powerful story of identity, memory, and rebellion set against the backdrop of a richly imagined galaxy. So, whether you're here for the action, the ideas, or just hear about suppressed revolutions, this conversation is going to deliver. Please welcome the great and powerful AJ Calvin. How are you doing today, AJ?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. It is nice. The weather was actually pretty decent on my neck of the woods. It was rainy for like 15 minutes, and the rest of the time it was sunny. Even though I was locked in my box, I was going through and noticing the dog have fun in the backyard. So that was good. It was good.
Sounds like
So
a good day.
it was a good day. It was good. I'm super excited to have you. I am a huge fan of Wraith and the Revolution. I've been pushing it to as many people as I think would go through and enjoy it. But for those not familiar with your work, what's the elevator pitch for Wraith and the Revolution?
Oh boy. Well, it's a space opera with I've been told I didn't think about this myself, but military sci-fi themes and some cyberpunk-ish type stuff. But my main thing is I really like to delve into the characters and really get inside their head and have the reader experience what they're going through. And the main character of Wraith, Kai, goes through a bit. So,
Perfect. We got a friend that jumped in. Hey, J.A. Bryden. Welcome, buddy. I appreciate you being here. So let's go back to uh, when you first decided, hey, this is the path I want to go through and take. So what got you into writing, and when did you realize this is something you really wanted to go through and pursue?
I have been writing stories for fun since I was in elementary school. It's just always been something I did, but I never thought about doing it seriously until I was in my 30s. And, I just kept writing stories and I eventually let my husband read some of them. And he's like, these are really good. You should, do something with this. And um, I was querying for a while. I've mentioned this on other shows and on my blog a little bit, but when I wrote the Kayan Legacy series, which is an epic fantasy series, I was querying that for several years. And I didn't get anywhere with it, and that process can be really soul crushing at times.
Mhm.
There's a lot of waiting, a lot of not knowing, a lot of not hearing anything forever. Um, and eventually, um, during the pandemic, I had a lot of time because we were stuck working at home, and my job is in a laboratory. It's hard to do a lot of that at home. So there wasn't much to do. And I had a lot of time to research other options. And that's when I decided, well, I'll try to publish a couple things on my own and see how that goes. And then it seemed to be going pretty good. So then I just kept doing it. And here we are.
Perfect. Perfect. So, inspiration. Has there been any kind of literary inspiration? You said you've been doing this since you were a wee lad. So, what's been your either literary inspiration, cinematic, or is there any something that's totally unexpected that's been an inspiration to your writing?
Oh, I don't know. I take inspiration from so many things. I mean, sometimes it's been movies, sometimes it's been video games, um, other books I've read. I have always been a reader, and um, I finally have bookshelves. We put these in last July, so I'm still in the process of filling them up. For a long time, I didn't have space for bookshelves, so I did a lot of reading on a e-reader, but Yeah, it just inspiration comes from a lot of sources, and sometimes it's just random conversations that I have with people.
Hmm.
Um, Specifically with Wraith, it is elements of that story have been around and floating in my head since I was like 13.
Oh wow.
And I kept trying different things and going about it different ways off and on for years. And finally, this was 3 or 4 years ago, it just all came together finally. And I was like, I have a cohesive story. I have something that's worth publishing finally after all this time. So it's like my newest book, but it's probably the one I've been working on the longest.
Oh wow. So you said you've been a big reader. What kind of books do you normally enjoy reading?
A lot of fantasy, a lot of science fiction, some horror. Every once in a while, I'll read something that's nonfiction, or I'm part of a book club, and sometimes they convince me to read romance. It's not usually my thing, but sometimes it's all right.
What's uh what's your favorite book that you've gone through and read this year? So fantasy,
Oh, this
sci-fi, horror.
year,
What's been your favorite so far this year?
I think my favorite so far this year was The Walled City by L.L. Stevens. It's book
Mhm.
5 in her Triumvirate Revelation series. That series, like, it started out great, and it just keeps getting better with every book. I love her stuff.
And what did you say her name was?
L.L. Stevens?
L.L. Stevens. Okay, awesome. I'm gonna check them out. I'm not familiar with their work. Awesome.
It's epic fantasy with a lot of, like, that world's politics, and
Mhm.
it's just it's really, really good.
Awesome. How many books? You said book 5. Is that the newest one, or is
Yeah,
there?
her 5th book just came out in April, I believe. There's one more left in the series if I
Oh,
remember right, and that should be out next year.
perfect. Perfect time to jump in.
Yes.
Perfect time to jump in. So going back to Wraith and the Revolution, how did the story start? What was that initial spark? You said you started really mulling this over at 13, but what was that spark that gave you the idea for this? Was it a character? Was it a question, or was it something else entirely different?
So I'm trying to think back 30 years. um, uh, I the original version was very different from what the published book is. I mean, and I was 13, so it looking back at it, I was like, I don't know what I was thinking. Some of it was just so off the wall. Um, but there was some inspiration from um Goosebumps. I read a lot of that when I
Okay.
was younger, and then I want to say it was an episode of The Outer Limits, maybe. There was it was very different than the final version in any case. But Soren and Xylar were both in that first version of the story all those years ago, and they've stuck with me all this time.
So when it comes to your creative process, would you consider yourself more of a plotter or a pantser when it comes to your stories?
I I do plot, not extensively. I
Mhm.
have certain things that I want to have happen in the story, and I have an order that they need to happen in. So I follow that, but I don't like detail every chapter. That sort of comes as I'm writing. So it's kind of a hybrid, I
Okay.
guess.
So do you have like an idea of like, okay, this is where I want to go from a beginning to end, and then you kind of fill it in the gap in between there, or is it kind of like chapter by chapter? Like these are the beats I want to hit in the chapter. Let's figure out how we get there.
I have an outline, like, I have bullet points of things I wanna hit, but it's not by chapter, so sometimes, like, one of the bullet points, there might be 3 or 4 chapters in between them. So, yeah, it's not like, there's an outline, but it's not extensive.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm explaining that
No, you're
very
good.
well.
No, it's a little bit of a hybrid. No, good.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit to when you're not writing or editing. What's your favorite way to go through and recharge your batteries?
I I like to go and be in nature. Like, I like to hike. My husband likes to fish. Most of the time when he's fishing, I have the camera and I'm taking pictures and wandering around and stuff. Um, when I have the opportunity, I like to go scuba diving. Um, I live in Colorado, so most of the time that requires us traveling somewhere because I'm not a fan of the cold, and most of the water here is cold. But, yeah, I like to just go outside and be outside. That seems to help recharge, and sometimes I get ideas that way too
So
for stories.
how long you been scuba diving? That's on my bucket list. So it's definitely something very interested
I
in.
love it. We got certified in 2016, so not super long.
Okay. How many trips have you done? Because since you don't do it locally, you got to actually travel
Yeah.
somewhere. So in that
Um,
9-ish years.
yeah, I think we've been on 6 trips. We've
That's awesome.
mostly around the Caribbean, um, because yeah, warm water.
That's fun. See
But
anything really cool? Did you go see like any sunken ships or any swim with sharks or anything cool?
We have done a couple wreck dives. My favorite one was off of Cayman Brac. It was the Captain Keith Tibbetts wreck, and it was
Hmm.
an old Russian warship that they purposely sunk to make an artificial reef. And there's like some of the gun turrets and stuff are still attached. None of the weapons themselves, but like, it's really cool to do that kind of stuff. Um, Probably my favorite encounter we had. We saw a hammerhead shark on one of our dives.
That's
That
cool.
was super cool.
That's cool.
And that kind of leads into something that ended up in Wraith. There are a few creatures that I will not jump in the water with. And one of them is the Humboldt squid, which shows up in Wraith.
Hmm.
If you don't know about Humboldt squid, look them up. They're a little terrifying.
I don't. I need to go through. It's a humble squid.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll go through and I'll look it up. What makes it so terrifying?
They are fairly large, like 5 to 6 feet long, if I'm remembering correctly. They're pretty strong, and there are stories of them pulling divers under, like, farther deeper than you should be going. And yeah, they're a little scary. They're very aggressive, from what I understand.
Yeah, they look. All right, I'm gonna present. We're gonna we're gonna do a little bit of show and tell real quick. Yes, let's go. Humble squid. There we go. Look at that. Looks like it's attacking that person.
Hopefully it's not, but yeah, I watched I want to say it was on Animal Planet years ago, right after our first diving trip. We came home, and I was off work for another day or so, and I happened across this thing, and it was all about Humboldt squid and like attacks, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna dive with those things.
Yeah, it looks terrifying. Terrifying. It doesn't look too big, but it looks big enough to scare me. Hmm. Interesting. Hey, Mark, how are you doing, buddy? Love the new logo. I don't know if I told you yet. He changed his colors for his logo.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
so let's jump back into your creative process. So when you sit down to start a story, what usually comes first for you? Because you said you're a plotter with a little bit of hybrid. What comes first when you're going through and plotting out that story? Do you focus on the plot, the characters, the settings, the theme? What's your normal plan?
Usually, I have a good idea of the characters before I start plotting. I don't know if that's something I necessarily intend to do, but that's always what happens. Like these characters will show up in my brain and they just won't leave me alone. And then I have to do something with them, right? So I usually have characters pretty well sorted out first. And then from there, I'll work on an outline and some of the world building elements about the same time. I have so many notebooks of world building stuff around my office. It's yeah, there's there's like 3 of them on my desk right now. So,
So do you do like have a notebook per story, or do you go through and just like have each notebook is for a different area of your world?
it's usually 1 notebook per world. So, I have 2 different epic fantasy series published that are in different worlds. I have another fantasy project I'm currently working on. Then there's one for Wraith and things that are related. Um, yeah, so it's really based on whatever world I happen to be working on at the time, or in Wraith's case, universe.
Universe. Mhm. So how do you approach building a world then that feels both futuristic but also so grounded? Really, how do you balance that tech with the relatable emotions that you did in Wraith First Revolution?
You know, I don't know if I have a good answer to that question because it wasn't something I consciously did. I just did it, if that makes any kind of sense. Like I just like for Megatropolis, I wanted it to be a city spanning world or
Mhm.
world spanning city, sorry. Um and I liked the idea of the artificial rings. So there's some technology there, a lot of technology there. But then worlds like Botanar, their people are more attuned to nature. And so I went about it going, okay, so how would we incorporate technology without affecting like the trees? They're very partial to plants there. So I mean, sometimes there's conscious questions that I ask myself when I'm coming up with stuff, and then other times it's more of a vague idea that I just like make myself work through as I'm writing.
Okay. So when it comes to your characters, because you said you really know your characters prior to going through and writing your story, has there been a moment of writing the story that your characters came and completely surprised you within while you were writing your story?
Yeah, sometimes my characters do things I don't expect. A great example is Zin from Wraith.
Mhm.
I wasn't planning to do the nickname thing. And then it happened once and I was like, "You know what? I'm just going to run with this because it's kind of fun." um so sometimes they do things that I don't necessarily plan for.
So when you're writing your story with your characters and they're going through and surprising you, do you go through and write in chronological order? Or do you go through and say, oh, this is the scene that they really want me to go through and write about. Let me write this scene and then kind of put it together at that point.
I have to go chronologically. Like I can't operate by writing scenes out of order. I can't do it. I know some people do it and they do it really well, but I am not one of those people.
So Mark said something. Let me put up here. He wanted to say he loves the cover. Mark, the cover doesn't do it justice, man. You got to see it in person. It looks so good in person. Like it looks really good, man. But yeah, I can't agree more.
Yeah,
It looks good.
I was really happy with how the cover came out. The artist is J. Caleb Designs. I did the text portion, but he did the artwork because I am not an artist. Um, but I know some people have been waiting. The hardcovers are finally available for pre-order. I had some fun times getting that set up, but I'm really excited if it comes out as I hope. My copy is shipped, but it's not here yet. I did a laminate cover underneath the dust jacket that just has the artwork. So I
Oh,
think it's going to look really cool.
oh, that's cool. That's cool. I'm excited to see it. You're gonna post it all on social media once it comes in. Awesome. I cannot wait to go through and see it. Um, so when you're going through and writing your story, I'm really curious. I've asked a few people this question, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Are there any scenes or chapters in Wraith that changed drastically during your drafting process?
There were several scenes that were cut um, from early on. I had some feedback from beta readers that there was too much um, in the beginning in terms of like Kai's training after he joins Sieg. And so I cut some of that out. Um, I don't know if anything was terribly drastic, but there were some deleted scenes. We'll say that.
Nice, nice. Are there how do you know when your story is finished? Do you trust your gut? Do you lean into those beta readers, or are you the kind of person who wrestles a lot with the ending?
I I rely a lot on the beta readers for feedback. And the two main ones that I have been basically reading my stuff since I started publishing. So it's nice to have that feedback. I have one book out right now with betas that I actually sought a few other opinions on because it is a lot different than anything I've written before. So it was one of those I was like, I kind of need to branch out a little bit for this story. But um yeah, I mean, I've been I've been getting feedback from them for quite a few years now, and like I trust their judgment more than I trust myself sometimes. But there's also that element of like you have to find that balance too, because sometimes I'll get conflicting feedback. One person's like, "Oh, there's too much of this," and the other person's like, "No, I need more details with the same thing." And it's like, okay, so how do I find that happy medium? So
Hmm.
there is some of that on me that like I have to just know when to stop tweaking something and okay, we're done.
So how do you make that decision? So if you go through and send, just say you send it out, and half the people say one thing, and other half say something completely different. How do you decide which route to go forward with? Do you have any kind of secret sauce?
I don't know if it's a secret. I mean, I wake myself up at 3 a.m. not intentionally a lot, thinking about feedback and like how can I get this to work better and um I don't know. Insomnia is probably not a good answer as a secret, but
You get your best aha moments at 3 in the morning. That's what it is.
sometimes,
You
yeah.
get the best moments then. So What has been the most challenging and rewarding part about writing your books?
Um, I'll start with rewarding because that's the easier answer. When somebody connects with a character or the story and says something that is like the coolest thing ever. Seriously, like it means so much when somebody is like, "Oh, I read this and I loved this character because of this." And sometimes it's characters I don't expect people to really connect with. Um, so that's really the most rewarding thing for me. The most challenging is honestly getting known, getting people to take a chance on my work. Um, I mean, you probably hear that all the time from authors, marketing,
Mhm.
it's it's a lot. And sometimes you feel like you're just yelling into the void and nobody's listening. And then other times you get inundated with stuff. So it's just the hardest part is getting noticed, really.
And what so if someone's going through and watching and they have a bright idea, what's one advice that you can go through and give to someone to prepare them for the after I wrote the book and going through and marketing?
Be prepared for a lot of people to tell you no, if especially if you're going to try the querying route. But even if you indie publish, sometimes reviewers don't have time. Sometimes they're just not interested, so be prepared for that. And also don't go into it thinking your first book's going to be an automatic bestseller, because the reality is it's probably not unless you're super lucky. So, just temper your expectations, I guess.
I think that's great advice. Tempering your expectations. I think it's really good. Good advice. Um, Mark would like to know, how many books have you written?
Written, I believe I'm currently working on number 19. Published, Wraith is number 11, or will be next week. So,
Wow. And that's 19 full full novels since 13?
well, I'm not counting the ones that I never intended to publish,
Okay.
honestly. There's probably more than that. Um, yeah, there's definitely more than that. But ones that I think I might publish one day is probably I'm on 19 right now.
Wow. That's impressive. That's impressive. um, Tavelson says, "Why do you make us wait so long between books?"
So Tavison is my brother.
Hey, brother.
Um, you have to build anticipation. Also, sometimes I'm in the works. So my brother knows um one of the series I'm currently working on. I've written 6 books of it, but I don't intend to publish any of it until I at least have the whole series drafted, because I have to keep going back and fixing timelines and tweaking things here to
Mhm.
there, and it's just easier if nothing's published to go back and fix things. So yeah, there's that part of the reason too.
I have my favorite authors go through and do that. Is they go through and they write their full series, and then they go, "All right, well, I'll start putting out one book every year while I'm working on my next group of books." So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm all like, I think that's awesome. So a 6 book series. What's that? Can you give us? Are you allowed to give us a little hint on what that story's about?
Yeah, so that one is another epic fantasy series. It's set in the same world as the Kayan Legacy. So if anybody watching has read those books, same world, 1,000
Mhm.
years before, and it focuses on an event that's mentioned in my other series, which is the Mage War. Um, it's probably going to end up around 8 books when it's done,
Oh,
but I
wow.
I'm not for sure on that number. It might be 9.
So Mark has another question. We're going to jump back into. I want to get a little bit into specific question I have about Wraith. And so Mark said he heard that most authors hate their first book. It's not till book 2 or 3 where they start feeling comfortable with their work. Is that true? So you've been through 19. Is Mark right?
Yeah, so my earliest books, I'm not sure I would say I hate them, but I would rather nobody ever looks at them, if that makes I mean, some of them I wrote when I was pretty young, and it's one of those it was probably great for my age, but it's not really something mainstream would wanna read because it's either so off the wall or it just wasn't good. So, yeah, in terms of the books I've published, my first one was Hunted, which was an urban fantasy, and, like, I struggled to market that one more than anything 'cause it just it's not my normal thing to write, to begin with, and, um, I don't talk about it much because it's one of those that I just it's there. It was okay, but, I've done better since then. So,
Okay, perfect. Love it. What's that one about? I have it pulled up.
Hunted is it's about 2 sisters. One has the ability to become a summoner. She can summon demons, and then her sister, um, has kind of an opposing ability where she can track, and she's recruited by a group of hunters that have been at war with the summoners forever. A lot of it's set in Seattle, so it's more modern day and definitely urban fantasy.
That that sounds really cool. So is that just one book in the series?
Yeah, it's just a standalone.
Standalone? Okay. That sounds really interesting. Do they end up having a battle against each other in the book? Or is
Maybe.
that maybe? Maybe? Who knows? All right, cool. No, it sounds very interesting. It sounds I'm a sucker for a good urban fantasy because I go through and I read a lot of big epic science fiction, a lot of epic fantasies, or I lean into horror stories, and then I don't get a lot of the urban fantasy. So anytime I hear of a great story, I try to add it in. So yeah, I'll definitely go through and check out Hunt. It sounds very, very interesting. Very interesting. All right. So I want to jump in to Wraith. I'm really curious. Let's start with Kai. What drew you to tell the story through Kai's perspective? What made him different from the other characters? What made you pick him?
He's probably one of the last characters I actually developed. And I don't know why I decided to tell his specific story. It just seemed like it would work for everything else that I had planned, and I think it did. So, um, I mean, there are elements of Kai's character that are very personal for me. Um, I don't know if you read the author's note at the beginning of the book, but um, Kai has sickle cell trait, and I also do. So I'm very familiar with that condition and some of the potential limitations. Most of the time, it's completely asymptomatic, but there are certain things that could trigger it, and triggering it is not good. So, and that was also kind of a late addition. I knew I wanted him to be stuck on his homeworld. He couldn't
Mhm.
leave. I needed a good reason why. And I thought it over and thought it over. And I was like, I was a little hesitant to add that piece in because it is, very personal for me. But then I was like, I know this. I've lived with this my whole life, so why not put it in?
Hmm.
So,
So a little bit of secret time between us friends. I don't read the author's notes. I'm so
okay.
sorry.
No,
I,
that's
I,
okay.
it's something I get ragged on all the time because people go through like, oh my goodness, you read the author's note? It was so touching. I go, I probably should read those. I don't. I don't know. I like I'll end up after this call. I feel bad, and I'm gonna go through
Oh,
read
don't
read
feel bad. Like,
it. But
I know it's something a lot of people skip. I'm guilty
yeah.
of that when I'm reading stuff too.
Hmm.
So, but I also know some people appreciate it, so I add them to my books.
I know a lot of people that go through and appreciate it, and again, I get ragged on all the time. But that was secret time that stays between us friends that I
Okay.
don't go through and read that. So I really liked how you wrote the Xyler um, corporation. It plays a huge, massive role as a big force that our characters need to go through and deal with. What went into designing a company that feels so eerily believable in its control and its ethics? How did you get into that mindset to put something like that together?
So, I don't know. That was the original version of Xylar. Was he was like this evil tyrant king, and later on, as I got towards writing the final draft of Wraith, I was like, I don't think that's actually going to work. So we'll make it a corporation, which made it a little interesting at times because there are some antagonists in the story, but the
Mhm,
villain is a company that
mhm,
controls so much. And I mean, some of that influence came from some of the stuff that's going on right now in the world. And it was some conversations I had with my husband about, well, what if, this happened and, one company ends up basically controlling everything. So for people watching, this isn't really a spoiler because it's mentioned very early in the book,
mhm,
but Xylar Inc. controls the galactic government because they're the ones that code the AIs that run the government. So, yeah, there's definitely some influence as to what's going on now.
mhm.
Um, I did write Wraith before the AI thing got so contentious, um, but I wasn't able to publish it until now because it wasn't ready. So, yeah, um, not for lack of trying on my husband's part. I don't know how many times he was like, "You need to publish it now. You need to publish it now." And I'm like, "It's not ready. I need to edit it again. I need to get artwork." like, um, but we could kind of see where things were going. And I had this book, and I was like, "Yeah, I need to get this one out there."
It's definitely the perfect time. I feel like for it to come out. Yeah, it was. When I was going through and reading it, I felt the similarities of certain things that are happening now, and then where I also potentially see things going as well from this point. So I can only imagine the leaps and bounds from when you probably first got pen to paper to it getting ready to come out, and going like, oh,
It's
a
a
lot
little
of a
scary,
lot of this, yeah, a lot
honestly.
of this is actually like dominoes are falling into place. So it was very very interesting to go through, and so I'm excited to for it to come out and hear what people have to say about this story. Definitely nowadays. So without spoiling anything, was there a scene or a chapter that was especially emotional or challenging for you to go through and write?
Emotional, the end of chapter 5 when Kai gets off world. Um
Hmm.
just because going back to the sickle cell thing, like when I was a kid, I had dreams of going into space. My dad was in aerospace for a long time, and he would bring certain things home. The company he worked for did the corrective lens on the Hubble telescope,
Oh, that's
stuff
cool.
like that. So I was exposed to that, and I really wanted to do that, and I was planning to at one point in my life, and then I found out that sickle cell of any form is an automatic disqualifier for spaceflight. And so writing that chapter was especially important for me because I was like, I will never be able to do this, but I can make Kai have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Um, what do you hope readers feel or question by the time they turn the last page of Wraith?
I want to say hope. Um, there are some like dark moments in the book, but I
Mhm.
don't like to leave something at that point. I like to give people hope that things could get better in some way.
Mhm.
And I try to end on a happier note with most of my books.
All right, let's jump into some fun. All right, so
Okay.
I mentioned before I do a lightning round with every guest. So this is no thinking, no thinking, just answer off the top of your head. Okay.
Okay.
All right, we'll start with some easy ones. There's nine, one, two, there's 10. I gave you one
And
extra one.
okay.
Normally it's nine, but it's 10 this time. All right, so you ready?
Okay. Yes.
All right, cool. Hero or anti hero?
Hero.
Day writing or night writing?
Day.
More terrifying, a memory wipe or a forced cybernetic upgrade?
Memory wipe.
Do you prefer paperback, hardback, or digital? I think I know this one.
I'm split between paperback and ebooks.
Okay.
Hardcovers are just too big for my hands usually.
Yeah, I like to be able to. This could be. I know this is against the rules, but I like twisting the book all the way backward and holding it like that. That's what I prefer, but that's just me. Um, favorite sci-fi villain of all times?
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader. A more dangerous, rogue AI or corrupt government?
Corrupt government.
A Okay. Galaxy you most want to visit, real or fictional? Whatever galaxy you would like to visit.
I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. Like it would have to be there.
Okay. Describe Kai in one word.
Oh, I know I'm not supposed to think, but I'm like, one word is tough. Um, yeah, I'm just like blank.
All right, we'll come back.
Okay.
One book you wish you written.
One book I wish I had written.
Mm-hmm.
Um, say Hyperion. I
Hyperion.
love I love I love that book.
Okay. Okay.
It's probably my first space opera type read ever.
All right. This one's my favorite question. I
Okay.
ask every single person this question. Every single one. Same question. If Wraith could have a theme song,
Oh,
what would it be?
a theme song.
A theme song.
So I am really bad at coming up with songs that relate to my books most of the time. I know like some people will have whole playlists and stuff, and like I don't. Like there's certain books I've written that later on I'm like, "Oh, hey, this song reminds me of this book," but I honestly don't have one for Wraith. Is that weird?
No, no,
Okay.
no, you don't. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. I'm trying to find. So this song Oh man, what's the I when I was going through and reading it, I had a song that was always playing in my head. It was Pink Floyd, "Another Brick in the Wall," was what I had for Wraith. This
That
and that
is
was the
fitting.
song that
That
was
is
in my
fitting.
head when I was going through and reading this of like my
That is
song.
really fitting.
So that was that's my answer. So there we go. I'll
Okay.
turn that one
You saved me.
in. So Star Wars, big Star Wars nerd. Interesting. Um, what do you think? I mean, we're going to get off tangent. We'll come back. I promise. We'll lean it back in the books. But really curious on your thoughts on how Star Wars is going now that Disney bought it. I know it's been a very long time since Disney bought it, but I get mixed reviews of Star Wars. Some people go, it's some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them hate them all, and I've had a like maybe one or two people that I've ever met that says they're all great. So I'm curious on your thoughts.
I really liked Rogue One, and Solo was pretty good. The new trilogy, I was not pleased with.
So are you a fan of the original prequel series?
Yes, I grew up with those movies.
Okay. I did too. I really enjoyed them. I really enjoyed them. Okay. Interesting. Have you read the books? The
I
Star Wars books?
haven't.
You
I
haven't?
haven't.
I have not either. And that's on my list. I just don't know where to start. And I keep asking people, and no one can give me a consistent answer on where I should go through and jump in. I just need two or three people to say, start at this Star Wars book and you'll be good. But everyone goes, oh, you got to start here. You got to start here. And I'm like, I need consistency on where I should go through and start because I
I
think I
think
would
that's
like.
been my problem too, because I wouldn't know where to start. And there's like, I don't know, 50, 60, probably more than that.
I think there's a lot more than that. I think there's
Yeah,
hundreds of Star Wars books, if I'm not mistaken. I'm gonna look it up real quick.
I just know there's a lot.
400.
Okay, I wasn't expecting it to be that many, but
There,
that's a
it
lot.
says, yeah, there's 400 Star Wars books. So again, I can't read that much.
Right.
In a lifetime, I can't read that much. So I need a little bit. I need some, right? Right, 400. Yeah, look, I'm not lying. Google it real quick. It says close to 400. So I need a Star Wars person who's read some books. Tell me where I should kind of lean in because that's too much. Hyperion. Have you read all the Hyperion or just the first one?
Yes, I've read all four of them. I know he wrote some like short stories and stuff in between. I haven't read those, but I read the four novels. I really enjoyed Hyperion and the Fall of Hyperion. The last two
That's the
books
first
I
two.
don't care for.
Okay. Um, all transparency. Secret Time.
Okay.
I did not like Hyperion.
Okay.
Um, I felt like it got to where they. Okay, here's what I didn't like about it. I was in it. I'm with Hyperion, and then they got to the end, and I'm like, okay, we finally made it, and then it was done. And I'm like, what is happening right now? So I guess I should have continued with the Fall of Hyperion. I don't know. It put a bad taste in my mouth where I'm
Yeah.
like, I just needed this much more. I didn't need a lot more. Just give me a
Mhm.
little tiny bit more for me to keep
I
going.
I honestly liked the second book better,
Okay.
but I know some people don't agree with that opinion. And if I remember correctly, so I read those books. I was like 16. Um, so it's been a long time. And then I reread them a few years later. But I remember the first book ended and then the second book picks up completely different character, different stuff. But I liked the story in the second one better.
So JCM says, what about Shadow of Hyperion?
I have read Shadow of Hyperion, and he knows I've read it. Was that which book was it? I think that was my favorite of his series. I had to look at my bookshelf to see which one it was in order. I think that was my favorite of his series. So if you haven't read Wistful Ascending and the Hybrid Helix series, you really should. They're awesome.
So I've bought them all. I have not read them yet, but I plan on reading them. Hopefully, the plan is next month. I'm going to go through and read the first one, but we will, unless something crazy happens that I can't get to it. The plan is next month. I'm going to go through and jump into it. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited to get into it. I hear nothing but great things. I
read Wistful Ascending as part of a book tour a few years ago, and I liked it so much I bought the rest of the books that were out then and like binge read them. I wasn't planning to, but that's what happened.
The big thing I keep hearing about it is the Space Bears. I need to go through and like
the Space Bears are fun.
Hearing that, I'm like, I have a mind of like an idea of what that is, but I'm really curious on what Joe did with Space Bear. So we'll go through and we'll see. So I'm expecting to love it. Everyone tells me I'm going to love it. So we'll see once I'm able to jump into it. All right. So leaning back, I'll pull the cart back here because I kind of got us off a tangent on Star Wars stuff. So if you could see Wraith adapted, what would be your dream medium? Would it be film? Would you prefer it to be a series or a graphic novel?
I could see it being a film. I think it would work really well in that format.
Okay. Who would you see playing your characters? And you don't have to do them all. As many as you feel comfortable with.
I've honestly never thought about this because it's one of those things of like, it's probably that scientist half of my brain that's like, realistically, this is never going to happen. So why even bother thinking about it? And I'm also like not super up to date on like actors and stuff. Most of the time I can be like, oh hey, I've seen this person in this movie, but I don't know their names. Like I'm just really not good at that.
Okay. So can you think of a person like let's just stick with Kai. Who do you think would pay our main dude? And I'm trying to find why we're doing this. I have a person in my head, and I'm the same way. I'm not good with names. I'm terrible with names. Like across the board, I'm terrible with names. So I'm trying to find the person. Found him. All right, cool.
Okay.
So I have a person in my head, and I'm curious.
Like I honestly I don't have an answer.
You don't have an answer? Okay. In my mind,
I'm bad at this.
I think Nicholas Hoult would do an amazing job. And we're gonna do show and tell again, and we'll go through and show. Is who I can see. I think he's a fantastic actor, and I think he could play him very well. Very well.
Yeah, I recognize him. I wouldn't have known the name because like I said, I'm bad at that.
I got a knack. Oh, all right, brother. Who do you think? I'm wrong. Tell me who should it be?
Yeah, he's better at the pop culture stuff than I am, so maybe he should answer that question.
Who is it, brother? Who we got? Who am I Googling? That's who I had in my mind. Yeah, he was about a boy. I think he would do a good job with it. I'm sorry. I'm just curious. All right, I need an idea. I need an idea. Because if I don't get a better one, I'm still sticking as Nicholas Hoult is the best idea. All right, we'll come back. I always like playing that game of trying to go through. Henry Cavill. It's Henry Cavill. That's who it's going to be. Henry Cavill. I think Henry Cavill's too big, to be honest. I think he's too. But that's just in my mind. That's just in my mind.
I could see like physical resemblance though. I actually know who that one is. So,
Yeah, Superman. Yeah,
yes.
yeah, I agree. I agree. Henry Cavill is always a good choice. When in doubt, go Henry Cavill. When in doubt. Um, so you've written 19 books. So, and based on our conversation, you've written in a lot of different genres and a lot of different themes. Are there any genres that you haven't explored yet, but are very curious to go through and try?
I've always kind of wanted to try writing horror. I mentioned this on a live stream a couple months ago, and I said I didn't think I had it in me, but one of the guys I was talking to has read my book Serpentis, and he's like, "No, there's horror in that book. You could do it." I was like, "I guess I didn't see it that way because it's a fantasy book, but it is pretty dark."
Okay. So what you mentioned at the beginning that you do like horror. What kind of horror do you prefer? Because I feel like there's a lot of different types of horror stories.
I really like the psychological horror and
Okay.
also like the supernatural sort of horror. I kind of bounce back and forth when I'm reading in that genre. The ones that are just gory, eh. I need a little bit more than just like blood and guts
A
to
little bit
keep me going.
more than just a slasher.
Yeah.
Okay. They said Scott Adkins, and I have no idea who that is. So I had to go through and Google it. And I guess he was in John Wick 4. I haven't seen John Wick 4.
I haven't seen the fourth one either.
But this is the. Oh, I thought I was still sharing my screen. That's what I get for. I was showing you. I was showing you here. Here we go. So this is what the chat's saying.
Oh, okay.
So
Was
very
that
good at
Tavison?
at action. He's an action guy. And I
Okay.
was looking at his wiki. So there we go. So all right, I've been outvoted by the chat. It is you're you got to get Scott Atkins to play in the story. So all right, I'll go with what the chat says. We'll go there. I agree. That was a better choice than mine. It's all good. All right, so for you, AJ, what are your goals as a writer? What is something you're striving to go through and do from a writing perspective?
I'm always trying to explore new themes. Like with every book or series, there's something
Mhm.
different that I'm doing. Um, I guess it keeps things interesting for me, but I also like to learn about stuff and being able to do that while in the process of writing, like I find that really enjoyable. So I'm always trying to, I guess, to grow and to do different things with each book or series. Maybe not necessarily genre wise, but sometimes concepts or themes differently.
Is there any theme that really stands out that you're like, hey, I really want to go through and explore this theme?
I've had this like in the back of my head for a few years, and I really want to write like a gladiator style book, but I haven't figured out how to a story for it yet.
Do you want to do a um like historical fiction kind of gladiator story? Or are you thinking like a space
I
gladiator
was
story?
thinking it would be probably more like a sci-fi thing, but have that like gladiator battle arena type theme. That's about as far as I've gotten. So it's it's We'll say it's nebulous, but it's been floating around my head for a while.
I like it. I'm a big sucker for gladiator style stories. I always enjoy them. Um, Speaking of Gladiator, have you seen Gladiator 2? Have you seen that
I
movie?
haven't seen the second one.
I haven't seen it either.
I'm a little afraid to because I loved the first movie so much.
Well, and that's my same thing. I'm a huge Gladiator fan. So thinking of anytime they do, hey, we're doing it's been 20 plus years and now part two's coming out. I'm like, I always get very nervous.
Mhm.
Um, I hear it's great, but it makes me nervous. It's the same thing when they redid Twister and they did Twisters. Uh, I was very nervous about that movie, but it was actually pretty good. It's actually
Okay.
it's
I
really
haven't
good.
seen the second one yet.
Yeah.
We actually just watched the first one a few weeks ago because my husband had never seen it, and I was like, "How did you grow up in the '90s and not see this movie?" So I made him watch it.
Did he enjoy it?
He did.
Okay, awesome. Yes, I cannot agree more. Gladiators in space is would be an awesome genre. I think it'd be awesome. Tim said it wasn't terrible, but of course, yeah. I it, I was like people's wording when I go through like, was it good? They're like, it wasn't terrible. It's like, okay, well,
So it was
was it
okay.
good? Was it like, is it worth the time to watch it, Tim? But yes, I cannot agree more. Top Gun Maverick was amazing, but I think it really had to do with there was really no CGI in Top Gun Maverick. They were actually flying the planes around, which was awesome. Did you
That's
have you
cool.
Are you a Top Gun fan? Have you seen those?
I've seen the first movie lots of times. I haven't seen the new one.
It's really good. It's really good. It's really good. It's crazy. It's crazy um, the cinematography within that story. It's so good. It's so good. And in the storyline's basic like Top Gun was originally. It's just really about the excitement of all the airplanes and everything was cool. So at this part, at this point in your career, what does success look like for you as an author?
I honestly like I don't know, it's not really a monetary thing for me. I'm just happy when people read my books and connect with the characters and like the story. Like that's really my goal. I I guess I've always been a storyteller. So to be able to share that with the world it's been really fun. And I think that's the success I'm looking at is, I'm able to connect with a few people and sometimes sometimes I get some really unexpected and meaningful feedback. I had somebody after I released Guardian, which is the second book in the KN Legacy, I had somebody email me and ask when the next book was out because they loved those characters so much. They didn't want to have to wait too long, and I was like, "Oh, that means a lot." I love the characters too, but I'm a little biased, so
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Um, what kind of readers do you think would resonate most with Wraith if you had to go through and find that perfect audience for that book for this book?
well, if people like space operas, but they also like really getting into the characters, um, I think that is a good match for this book because I all of my books are this way, but I try to really get into the characters and I mean they're the focus. The story's happening around them and they're um reacting and interacting, but I try to get into their head as much as I can and um so if you like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, It's definitely a well character driven story. You can definitely feel the characters coming alive in the story, and that's probably it's like what I really did love about this book. Um, so for readers who end up going through and reading Wraith and just totally fall in love with it, are there any other books or authors you'd recommend for them to go through and check out to get that itch?
I don't know eh, the like if the genre matters so much, but one author I really have enjoyed reading her stuff was Halo Scott. Um,
Hmm.
she is really good at getting into the characters, and but her books are definitely not for everybody. There is some very graphic and sometimes disturbing stuff, but in terms of like the character development, I really like her stuff. Um, I'm trying to think. I recently read The Wrecking Squad by Nick Snape, and I thought that was really good. It is a sci-fi, military sci-fi, um, and he just came out with the second book in that series. I haven't read the second book, but um, I really liked the character work he had in that, and there were some elements of kind of sci-fi horror, sort of reminded me of Alien a little bit.
Cool.
Um, so yeah, there's a couple options.
Perfect. Yeah, Nick's books have been on my to read for a while also. Um, his covers look very cool and kind of been every time I see them they just like pop out at me. They're definitely
Hmm.
very cool covers. Um, perfect. I'm going to go through and check out Halo Scott. I'm very curious about that one. So you mentioned a book that's out with your beta readers now. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that book if you're okay with talking about it?
Sure. It is so it's a cozy fantasy, which I've never done before, and it was not planned, but it ended up kind of more romance than I was expecting, which is why I needed some other beta readers for this one because my usual crew does not really read romance that much. Um, but it is about a ghost hunting crew set in a fantasy world, and the main character is recruited because he is a ghost. So it was that one came about from a random thing that happened a few years ago on Halloween. My husband was channel surfing and landed on it wasn't the Ghost Hunters show, but it was like an Irish version, very similar. And I was like, you know, every time they say they see something, then the camera pans over and there's nothing there. Like I just I have a hard time with believing those. But then I was like, but what if the ghosts were real and I had this like fantasy crew that's, investigating ghosts. So
So you don't have to answer this. I'm just curious.
okay.
So with the ghost hunting crew, they recruit a ghost. Do they know it's a ghost, or is it one of those situations where they don't know it's a ghost, and then they realize, oh, we have a ghost on our crew?
They knew, or at least most of them knew, because
Okay.
the first chapter, a necromancer shows up in this castle where the ghost has been haunting for centuries, and that's how he gets recruited because the necromancer can see him, but not everybody on the team can see him. So
Okay.
there's some pranks and stuff that happen here to there.
Cool.
It was fun to it was fun to write that one.
So you've done so. What's all the genres you've written? So you've done epic fantasy, you've done space operas, you've done um, urban fantasy. Now you got cozy fantasy. You have not done horror, but what other genres have you written in?
That's about it.
That's about it.
Yeah.
That's
I
impressive.
mean, the bulk of it has been epic fantasy, but I have dabbled with sci-fi like throughout forever. I just haven't published anything until now. So
What's your favorite to write? Like, if you had to only write in one genre, which one would you choose to write in?
I would probably say fantasy because you can make up so much. I mean, I do try to inject a little bit of real world stuff into my fantasy
Mhm.
books, but like it's fun to just like make things up and create. That's what I really enjoy doing. But writing sci-fi also, so I am a scientist outside of writing, so it kind of scratches that brain itch of, oh, I get to, talk about sciency things and be a little bit more technical here to there. So there's there's parts of both I enjoy, but if I had to stick with one, it would probably be the epic fantasy. I like the big battles and magic and stuff.
Awesome. Hobby Vomit says, what would be your recommended entry point to your work for epic fantasy?
So it depends if you like. Um, so my one series is sort of the more classic epic fantasy with the big good versus evil battles and scorpion men. They're scorpion men. And then the other series has dragons. So if you like dragons, the KN Legacy. If you like the more sort of classic type epic fantasy and scorpion men, it would be the Relics of War series.
Now, which one is it? The Relics of War is the one that you have your six, maybe up to eight. That is the prequel
Oh,
series.
that's the Mage War Chronicles. That's not published yet.
But is that the prequel to the
That's the
Relic?
prequel to the KN Legacy.
The Can Legacy. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
which begins with Exile.
Perfect. Yes. The one with the awesome dragon on the front of it. Okay. All right. That's the one I'm going to go through and read. I'm going to do that one. And then patiently wait on the other one, the prequel series to come out.
Yeah, that might be a few years at least. I don't know yet.
So, just says, are there any scorpion ladies?
Yes, there are scorpion ladies.
So, yeah, I think you got Hobby Vomit. He's going to jump into the Relics of War for the scorpion men, and then Joe wants to see the scorpion ladies. So that's what he wants to learn. So, before we close out, I'm curious, what kind of books what book are you currently reading right now?
I started reading River in the Galaxy by Natalie Kelda yesterday. It is a, I'm going to say it's a science fantasy. It kind of has a Treasure Planet feel. They have like wooden boats and they're traveling the galaxy in these wooden boats. It's kind of a cool concept.
And who was the author of that? You said the River of what? What was the author's name?
River in the Galaxy
Mm-hmm.
by Natalie Kelda.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Yes. The Inner Universe.
I think that's part of it, yeah.
Oh, this is cool. Like there's a boat flying over. Looks like a planet
Mhm.
on the cover.
Yeah, they like cross space in these wooden boats. It's pretty neat.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, I really do appreciate. I have like 5 recommendations I need to go through and read outside of your books. There's 5 other book series I need to go through and read. So I really do appreciate that. So, how can people go through and connect with you? How can they go through and find your books? What's the best way for people to support you?
You can find me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Blue Sky, or Instagram. Um, at AJ Calvin on the first two. Instagram is at author AJ Calvin. I also have a website, ajcalvin.net. Um, that's usually the best place to keep track of what I'm doing. I post a blog every Thursday. Sometimes it's about my book stuff, sometimes it's world building, sometimes it's just random. But I also post book reviews there and on the Fanfi Addict website because I'm part of their review team. I think that might be everywhere.
Perfect. So I really do appreciate you jumping on with me, AJ. This was a lot of fun. Thank you, everyone, for jumping on in the chat. You guys kept cracking me up. I really do appreciate it. I have all of AJ's information down in the description. So go through, check out her site, check out her books. I promise you, they're fantastic. They're going to make you think. They are very well done, and I'm super excited to jump into some of your other series. So thank you again so much for joining. It was so
Thank
much
you for
fun.
having me. This was great.
Yes, and I cannot wait for your 6-part series to come out. Well, we'll have you back on, and we'll go through and we'll yap about the Mage War. Is that what you're going to end up calling it? Fantastic! I love it. So thank you so much. I hope everyone has a fantastic evening. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.